Welcome to our special festivals and fairs and carnivals edition of Owlbear Soup. I'm
Yes.
Justin.
And I'm Rich. Hello.
Your fair is your fair background's much more modern than mine,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's very fun and very pretty looking.
I wasn't sure, I when I was doing some research for this, I wasn't sure if I was going to jump into like Starfinder or, what our time frame would be.
Yeah,
There's a lot of cool festivals out there. So I
yeah.
went with one that's close to home.
Oh, okay.
This is,
Is
I think, San Diego,
okay. Mine's some fantasy place.
right? Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, Rich, do you
Yeah.
have any news this week?
You know, Not much. I think on my end, I've been spending a lot of time working on this Twine game for this Kickstarter for a game called Mission Catastrophe that should be out pretty darn soon. I mean, and so that's good. That should be out either Monday or sometime later this week. We're deciding if we're going to push it back a little bit, just because this week has been chaotic.
Oh,
You know,
uh,
you know.
yeah. Laser mentioned Legacy Season 0.
Yes, we. Oh my gosh, we picked up Betrayal Legacy Season 0, and have you played any of the Betrayal Legacy games?
Not the Legacy ones, no.
Okay, so let's see. So pandemic, stopping a virus doesn't sound like a ton of fun right now, right? Um, Season 1 is.
And this is
Did I say
Pandemic,
Betrayal?
not Betrayal. Yes.
No, Pandemic Legacy, Betrayal, different thing. Although
Yep,
maybe that's never mind. Won't say anything.
that could be a
Um,
thing.
but in the first season, it's basically takes place with Pandemic, the game, and so you're just doing a harder version of Pandemic. I didn't like it. But a lot of people really did. Season 2 is this post-apocalyptic game where you are like coming back after the pandemic and rediscovering the world, and it's really fun.
Oh,
Like the world, you put stickers on the board once you find new cities and things like that. It's really cool. Um, Season 0 is the last one that they're making, and it's a prequel, and you're in the Cold War, and so it's tons of fun. You have I don't want to give too much away about the game, but
mhm.
you have a passport, you have aliases, you have to move in between like Allied and Soviet cities around the board. You have to deal with surveillance and all sorts of things, and you're discovering what people are up to, and that thing just happens to be the name of the game, Pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
um, it's tons of fun. It's a game that you play over 12 months.
Hmm.
So minimum amount of game time is 12 games. Some of those months you might play again if you don't succeed the first time. We played 6 months in a day and a half, I think.
Oh man.
Plus the prologue. So we did a little extra one to make sure we knew how the game works, and we just
Right.
busted the whole game out. It was incredible. It's really, really good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, we've left it out. We took a break just because this week,
Yeah,
and but I do want to get back to it and finish it up because the story is really fun actually, and I like the mechanics a lot.
yeah, yeah. Laser points out that you're speed running the Cold War.
Pretty much, pretty much.
uh,
Um, oh, there's so many cool things in that game. If you have never played one, I think this one is a lot of fun, and
okay.
we're just playing it 2 player, which is the perfect way to play a legacy game because we don't need to get everybody together.
Hmm.
We just go for it, and the game seems. They've mentioned this before. The game is easier with 2 players. Actually,
Oh,
it's
okay.
harder the more players you have.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, then, yeah. That's I mean, that could definitely be something Aubrey and I could go pick up and give a go. Um,
I love it.
Yeah, not on the board game front, but a new
Mhm.
game has entered my collection of games that I am playing, and it's this dumb little game called Hades.
Hades.
So Hades is a roguelike adventure type game where you essentially play the son of Hades, right?
Mhm.
And you're trying to escape, the underworld. And because it's a roguelike, you just keep going, you die, you start over. You keep going, you die,
Mhm.
you start over. And the dungeons are all randomly generated, and it's terribly, terribly addicting. And it does give me a ton of ideas for D&D. I've always thought
Yeah.
I've always thought like it would be fun to write a roguelike adventure,
Mhm.
or even even a small like roguelike campaign where The idea would be like you would have a deck of cards or something, and that would help determine like what you encounter on the routes and what the routes look like, because
Mhm.
that's something that I enjoy in roguelikes is the randomization of the different routes. And I could totally see
Yeah.
this being something that you would do in D&D, where you have like a stack of cards and maybe they're divided by tiers and you just flip them over and then that's the next room, right? um,
Oh.
it would
Mm.
have like the room, and then maybe you have a whole rewards deck, right? So you have these
Yeah.
two decks, and you kind of build the roguelike adventure like that. And certain things you get out of the reward deck are permanent, certain ones
Mhm.
aren't. So you pick like a level, you pick like level 3 or whatever, and you start there, and then
It goes through.
you slowly work your way through. But
Mhm.
anyway, so this
I
has
love
been
that
on
big.
my brain a lot lately.
You just described my high school experience with Warhammer Quest. We played
Yeah,
that game, me and a friend, so much, and that was it. You have a town you can go back to, and then you go on quests, and it's just flipping cards to see which tiles you lay down for rooms, and
yeah.
going through. You level, you get loot, you head back. The thing it always turns into, and Hades does this as well, is when you're playing the game, it's not a role playing game for the most part, right?
Hmm.
You start just diving into the dungeon aspect, the like survivability. Do I have enough hit points to get through here? Should I do this fight? Hades has these trove chests if you want
Hmm.
extra challenges, and sometimes you're like, yo, I'm up for that, I'm ready, and sometimes you're like, nope, I got to get out of here. um, as I need to try to get this to the next boss, fight that, things like that. A game is so fun. I love roguelikes, and turning one into D&D would be a lot of fun. Um, they have those uh, gosh, what's this? Dyson Logos does a lot of things with die based maps.
Hmm.
And so his intent for those is you do have map dice and you roll them to kind of lay out the next zone,
Yeah.
which I think is very fun.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see, bringing that roguelike idea into D&D. So anyway, it's
Mhm.
just it's definitely got my brain juices flowing, which I enjoy it when a game does that.
Ooh,
Yeah.
or like those convention delves that they do. You sign up for what, like not even an hour spot just to see how far you can get through this grinder that they have set up.
Yeah.
Those were some of my favorite games at cons, actually, because it's just big minis. They're ready to go because they know you're going to start here and you're not going to finish. But whoever gets the farthest gets a prize at the end of the
Yeah.
weekend.
I
I love that.
When 4th edition was in its earlier days at PAX Prime, there was a kind of a grinder version of the game in which you'd get your ultimate table together, you guys all set up, and you had to go up this tower. And the idea was the tower was just a meat grinder, and
Uh-huh.
it was so hard to reach the top. The first party I took out in the first encounter, so so they were done real quick. And then the second party I took out, I think it was on the fourth or fifth encounter, and there was like
Mhm.
7 or 8. So they did fairly well, but the team that ended up winning was a team of 5 rangers with pets, and they just sent their
Oh
pets
wow,
ahead of them, and then they just shot everything from afar. And then yeah,
yeah.
they just plowed their way through it. But anyway, yeah,
Ooh, the Drake Warden would be perfect.
exactly right. We just talked about that on
uh,
Monday.
I know. No.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love things like that where they take the idea of D&D, they take the idea of games, and they change them. And I
Mhm.
think roguelike is one of
Yeah.
those. And it's not necessarily like it's a particularly new style of game, but it's just they're doing really
Yeah.
interesting things with that style of game now, and super
Right.
jazzed.
Yeah.
Speaking of
I
games
like
that,
it because
oh yeah, go ahead.
oh yeah. No, I like it because it's a game where the point is to fail.
Hmm.
Uh, at some point, you're going to lose, and that's just the way it is, and you can try again. And I
Yeah,
think adding that aspect makes a roguelike good, and turning that into D&D is the trick. Figuring
hmm,
out how to twist that, I think, so that you can be like, shoot, we lost. Well, we pop back up, reset, let's go again.
hmm,
That breaks a few of the rules, but I kind of want to build it. I don't even
yeah,
know how to do it right now.
right,
That
yeah.
would be fun.
Yeah. The other game that right now that still gives me plenty of inspiration is Destiny, and Destiny's about to release their new expansion this week, and I know
Oh,
we are going to be deep into that as soon as that rolls out.
Yes. I'm so excited. So this is uncovering the secrets of frozen Europa. We have no idea what's out there,
Hmm.
and they keep saying secrets, and which is the thing I love because it reminds me of Rime of the Frost Maiden. Honestly, it's
Hmm.
just stuff's out there. We got to go find it. They're similarly adding like storm mechanics to make it hard to see things in the distance and make it feel difficult in this general FPS style game. But I am excited to get like under the ground and see what's still under there and what's been built under that. I feel like it's going to be a fun adventure.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll probably be talking about that a little bit next week. But
Huh?
yeah, do you have anything else to hit on before we get to the topic du jour?
I don't think so. I mean, it's. Whew.
All
I'm
right.
ready. I'm ready
All
for
right.
some festivals.
So here we go. Yeah, let's talk about festivals in D&D. So D and the
Mhm.
I love the idea of festivals in D&D because the imagery of the like village festival. I love the
Great.
idea of the village festival, the thing where you show up and they have these unique traditions, unique foods, unique ways of celebrating. Everything is very, especially when you get into like modern times, like a lot of them like look very similar. A lot of festivals, a lot of fairs look
Sure.
similar. They have big crazy rides. They do this, do that, do the other, and but when you look at regional festivals, like in the time that we're supposed to be representing in fantasy, you get weird things like I haven't seen it, but midsummer, right? You get festivals like the midsummer
Sure.
festival,
Mhm.
right, where they do the thing where they certain places do the thing where they tie the ribbons around the pole, and there's other festivals where they're doing caber tosses, and then there's others where they're
Mhm.
throwing like this powdered sugar at each other and covering each other in weird colors. And I love the fact that you can do things like that and you can make it weird. You can make it weird, not like weird for weirdness sake, but weird in a way that kind of exemplifies the culture of these villages, towns, and cities in your fantasy campaign,
Yeah.
and you can really highlight what makes them unique.
I love that so much. I was just, as you were talking about that, thinking about the one and only time I've been to a Renaissance fair.
Hmm.
Because you see those. I definitely watched as people came in and did the maypole, part of the day, the
Yeah,
games they've got going in different places, the different competitions. Like that's such a perfect way to get a sense of what these festivals are going to be like.
yeah.
Um, and then decide how are you going to adapt all of those for your game. And I've
Hmm.
I've played some of those events in games. They're fun. They
Yeah.
do change the atmosphere a lot, and they make us excited to discover what's going on in this little sleepy village that we might not have cared about before because there's goblins out there and them are hills.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now we're going to interact with some people.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's really cool. Like I love festivals and fairs where it's like maybe just that is the adventure, right? Maybe part of the adventure is you've come to this cool town and they have a competition, and you need to
Yeah,
do the competition to be ingratiated into the town, into the culture, that type
right.
of thing. So yeah, I'm pretty into it.
Yeah, I also like festivals that get a little bit bigger, the ones that bring people from near and far,
Hmm.
like not just the village one, but like the Theros book has the Olympics, basically the Eroan Games in there, where they do have this site where people show up and create this festival atmosphere with big competitions that have major consequences. Um, there was a great birthright adventure I ran, which was an international race, and everybody got these, build your wagon, find your team that's going to take you down this race. And there was lots of conflict between the racers as they traveled through the routes, and lots of things to find along the way. But it was really really fun to just to build in all of the little mini parts, the games that make a festival, a competition, really interesting. Oh no. Well, so let's see. So yeah, festivals can have this nature where they are small. They can get kind of medium size. A lot of questions about whether they are just meant for the people around here. Oh my ghost. Um, and or whether they are bringing people in from the region, right? There's and back in Portland, there was always the carnivals that would show up on the waterfront, and then
Oh
there
yeah.
would be which is a different deal than like the county fair that brings people from all around to hop in,
Hmm.
or the state fair, even bigger, or Enchanted Forest. I don't know, different deal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, even Enchanted Forest, there's definitely things that you can steal ideas from on how
Mhm.
people interact with the things there. Um, and I guess for me, when and I made some notes over here. I like looking at historically or even regionally why people have festivals. There's the things, there's the traditions, there's the different rituals. What are you honoring? Well, like, why are you having this festival? Is it
Yeah.
a harvest festival, which is appropriate for our time right now in the world, in the northern hemisphere, or is it a festival because of some event? Like, is it a festival celebrating bananas, right? It's
Hmm.
yeah. Is it festival celebrating the day that the town pushed off the horde
Right.
of goblins who had been raiding the town, and they finally did away with it, and now they're celebrating? Are they celebrating a person? Are
Right.
they celebrating food? What is it? And I think that's a great place to kind of look at your festival and start from there. And then
Yep.
you have your setting, you have your village, and you have this festival. And so, what would this village that's important to you and your players, what would they be celebrating to make this festival?
Mhm. Right, because that's going to change the nature of not just like the speeches that they do and the decorations, but the
Hmm.
intent of the games and activities that they're
Yeah.
doing. If they are like, this is the the anniversary of this battle that we had, I
Hmm.
expect there's going to be like little combat moments in there,
Oh yeah,
games like that.
reenactments.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's take that for an example, right? Maybe they are celebrating a great victory in a battle and something. So what you're going to see there is going to be dependent, but things that you can kind of picture is like people dressing up as like the heroes and the enemies. Especially
Yeah.
children in costumes running around with sticks and stuff, right? You
Yep.
create some of
Yep.
that imagery and you kind of build it up, and then there's going to be a fanfare. There's going to be music, there's gonna be celebration, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a very like triumphant type of
Right.
feeling.
There very maybe martial music going on. That's the town
Hmm.
band has put together this very symphonic march event.
Yeah.
People get up and they do get they get weepy at some of these songs because they remember them. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with that theme that will make it feel
Hmm.
very different than our harvest festival.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you can look at things like Day of the Dead, right?
Mhm.
And that's a very different festival, right? It's celebrating the dead,
Right.
and the forgotten. So it's a little bit more somber festival. We see in Mexico and their fantastic ways they handle that festival, and it's a celebration of the dead. So
Hmm.
while it is a little creepy, right? The face painting is beautiful, but it is
Yeah.
skulls. They're sugar skulls. It's a little macabre, but it is a celebration of their past,
Yeah.
of their ancestors. And so a celebration of your ancestors may still have some of those party aspects, but it's also going to have somber aspects too, where
Right.
people
Yeah.
are, maybe telling stories of their fallen comrades, of their family members, that type of situation, and maybe it won't be as crazy as like a Mardi Gras, but
Yeah.
it may still have some celebration, some dancing, that type of stuff. So, you know,
Right.
once again, looking at the culture of the village and what would they celebrate?
Yeah, I'm just immediately thinking about Eberron, and the elves who follow the Undying. Right, that's one of the
Is that
the
the
big deities
Arianal?
where, yeah, the Arenal elves. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they've got their ancestor worship, and maybe if they have a festival, there are some things about some of their featured ancestors, and
Mm-hmm.
you have games that are about remembering their path and some of their moments. Maybe there are still trials that you go through in order to do that. You take them really seriously. You attempt to complete these tasks and show your remembrance of that figure, maybe
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But building games in that sense can still give you things to test all of your players and give them all something to do.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't, excuse me, festivals that feature magic can still have things to do for fighters,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not just a big war scene.
Yeah.
Which I think is important when you think of a D&D festival, is how are all of your players going to find something to connect to in this story?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and and I just want to kind of point this out is I as you mentioned the elves of Eberron, I just immediately jumped to the halflings of the Talenta Plains, and I started thinking about what kind of festivals they would have, right? So they would have dinosaur racing. They would probably be the ones with the cabers tossed. There'd probably
Mhm.
be some fighting, some sparring.
Yeah.
More of a physical like type of festival where there's feats of strength and there's
Yep. Yep.
sword fighting competitions or whatever. You could pull some of that in too, and you can create these really unique and fun ideas.
Mhm. And those can also have big major rivalries like that kind of festival. Yeah, of course the family that lives way off is going to come into town, kind of everybody's going to go ooh and they're going to try to win everything, very
Hmm.
like uh that moment in Black Panther where where the mountain tribe comes down and everyone's like what's going on?
Yeah.
I love that kind of moment that where the festival kind of changes and gets a little eerie now, a little uncertain.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about a little bit about why you might be holding these festivals, some of the events you might see, but those events, you also have to think about time of year.
Yeah.
That's another important thing. Time and place, even like we mentioned the Arianal. I can never say their name. Elves, and I believe they're like in the northeast of Eberron. Meanwhile, the Talenta Plains are in the southwest. And so you're going to have very different regions here too, right? This is going to be maybe you might get some more snow. You might have, those kinds of festivals. Your spring festival might be a little bit more important here. Meanwhile, in the Talenta Plains, you might have something completely different that has to do with a coastal kind of feeling.
Mhm.
Maybe there's fishing, involved with it. Maybe it's summer festivals, right? In
Oh, yeah.
as opposed to like a winter festival or a spring festival. You think about time of year, think about region, think about how close you are to like mountains, how close you are to forest, how close you are to do you have a coastal portion of your village, and that affects the kinds of things you can do.
Yeah. Right? It's because a festival is really when we have events, they're going to allow the people in the town, not necessarily the players, to kind of show off the things they do. If it's a fishing village, there's gonna be a fishing competition. Of
Oh
course
yeah,
there is,
yeah,
because the people in the town need to feel good about the celebration. Otherwise, they
mhm,
wouldn't do it. If it's a town full of bakers and they don't have a bake off, what's going on?
right.
um, I was just thinking about the Talenta Plains, and I'm not sure. Like, what if it gets really cold? Do all the dinosaurs go to sleep? Do I need activities that these halflings can do while the dinosaurs are hibernating or something?
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah.
a great way to kind of narrow down what you're looking for out of a
Hmm.
festival.
Yeah. In with Rime of the Frost Maiden, just recently out. Um, and I don't remember if it's in the book, but I have read about festivals that happen in the 10 towns.
Hmm.
And one of the important things there is carving scrimshaw. So, of course, there
Yeah,
is a scrimshaw carving competition. And that's just like an easy one, right? What is the region, what is the area, what is the village famous for? Um, and then, of course, there's going to be a competition for it.
right. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was looking up some different resources on DM's Guild. I'll sprinkle them through, I think, today. But there is a Festival of Cold Light. It's a silver bestseller on DM's Guild, and it is specifically 5 new mini games, new NPCs, random tables, festival rewards, charm, just for your Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Right. So these things exist. People love festivals and they want to use them to kind of like expand on the realm that they're in. And yeah, just like you said, that Scrimshaw event is such a good one.
Hmm.
What are the people who are not good at Scrimshaw doing? Well, they might be doing this or this, and now suddenly I've got things for all of my players to really dig into.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's see. So and we've kind of talked about like in general, like what a festival, what a fair looks like,
Mhm.
and we start talking about some of these small events and big events that happen, and think about even going to your county fair, right? Some of the small events is
Yeah,
showing off their prize pigs, that type of stuff.
great.
Some of the bigger events, maybe like special guests, maybe musicians, bards, entertainers, something that draws a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
In that, and being able to draw a crowd can create very interesting scenes for your D&D game.
Yes. Oh, I like that. I was thinking earlier when I was, had festivals. Thinking about this festival here in the background, right? One of my favorites is the festival is dressing, right? Sure, we can interact with it, but there's
Mhm.
also it's just going to be the background for my next scene. Um, and one of the things I like about the movie Shazam is that the end of it takes
Oh
place
yeah.
in a car, like in a carnival.
Mhm.
Doesn't have a lot to do with the scene except that there's tons of people. The point is for them to have fun and enjoy themselves, and now they are put in danger by this huge evil foe.
Yeah.
um, like the stakes get raised pretty quickly. It's a lot different than a fight that you have, out in the wilderness on your own. um,
Yeah. Well, and
so that's
towards
another good reason to toss in a festival.
yeah, and towards you mentioned Shazam, and actually towards the end of not the Titans. What's the other one on DC? Doom Patrol. At the end of the second
Oh,
season of Doom Patrol, there is a scene that takes place uh in a festival. In the festival kind of gets turned too, right? So it
mm,
goes from a a fun, joyous place to like this horrible, horrifying place for the patrons and for the heroes and villains, right?
right,
So
right.
that's something that could happen too in your festival. It could just be a slight twist, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it becomes terrifying, and you have to find a source.
The Night Before Christmas is such a perfect example of just all of that. Just the thing that you expect and the twists on it.
Hmm.
um, very very good. Have I told you that we went to a place called Evermore?
Um, I don't remember.
So
I
it
think I'm
is
familiar with it, but I don't remember.
right. I got really excited when I heard about it for the first time. It feels like it's basically like a D&D Ren Fair style event. They have just every night. It's just a location, and that's what they do. You show
Hmm.
up. I think it opens at I think it's 5 to 10 is all
Okay.
it's open every night. And during that evening, they tell a big story. You go in, you see a small town. There's like the crypt over there. There's a tavern. There's like archery contests. There's all these different places to go and interact with different actors who were running around. I remember one who had candles in his hat, like in his top hats, and based on whether the candles were on or off, that actor had a different personality.
Oh.
Um, there's a group of bards who are like every half hour, I think, are singing and telling rumors about the town to convince you to go out and do these quests. Like go meet people, find out if they need anything. Sometimes they'll give you gold that you can turn in for things back at the shop, or sometimes there are major events. Like every single night has, or I guess every season. Like we went during the lore season, which if you decided to come back night after night, you would get different aspects of that story. But the night that we were there, with this big festival, all these things to do, you could not interact with any of this and have
Hmm.
fun, just like running through this haunted maze, like running, like doing some archery, seeing these cool things, like listen to dwarves sing songs. It's great. Or you could follow along the story of the gosh, what was it? The person, and I think it was like their betrothed had been killed, or two people had been killed somehow, and their ghosts were walking around,
Oh wow.
and the other actors couldn't interact with them. They didn't realize they were there, but all the people could see them. So you were kind of in on this story. Um, and then suddenly one of the actors can see them, and now it's a big deal. Like, oh,
Oh.
they're shoot, what do we do? How do we get them back together? And what I loved about it was this thing happening at the festival. So if you got into it, it was kind of eerie actually, talking to these people while fun is going on over there, and they're doing like a bird of prey show over here.
Hmm.
It was such a cool, unique experience. So if you ever end up down in Utah and want to go check it out,
Yeah.
Evermore, it's a dream.
Right. Yeah. And and we're talking about festivals and fairs, and that's absolutely something you could do. You could easily do it one of two ways. One, it could just be part of the festival and actors like that your characters are interacting with, and that leads them to adventure that we don't expect. Or on the flip side, it could be exactly that. The characters run into a spirit and they have to connect it with another spirit that's wandering the carnival somewhere,
Right.
and they have one night to do it because it's only one. The carnival's only one night or something like that.
Right. And there's still things to do. You can still pause. And even though this adventure is happening, you hear the call and you're like, shoot, I signed up for the archery contest. All right, hold on, ghost. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
gotta go
Right.
defend my prize. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun stuff you could do, whether this is like the centerpiece or whether it is just like the start
Hmm.
of an adventure.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's any. So I grew up in Florida, and in Key West, there is the nightly Sunset Festival, which is a nightly festival. And in that could be an interesting thing too, where maybe you enter this village or town and they have a nightly festival. And why do they have a nightly festival,
Mhm.
right? What's the reasoning? What are they celebrating daily that they need to celebrate daily?
Yeah,
And then you can really take that idea and say, okay, well, why would it be? Well, maybe it's a curse. Maybe they have to celebrate every
sure.
night, or something will happen, or maybe it's a superstition, right? And that if they don't celebrate the setting of the sun won't come back. And it's these kinds of things that you can kind of dig into and think about and go, wow, that would make that village interesting. And then what happens if they don't celebrate, and then the sun doesn't seem to come back in your game, right? Like, how do
Mhm.
you bring the sun back? It could be really interesting.
I mean, you just dived into. We had Midsummer right there. I think we had so many eerie festivals that you don't think are eerie at the starts. Um, but I was just thinking about when I was a kid. Oh my gosh! And I went to Disneyland for the first time,
Mhm.
and I saw the Electric Parade. I was like, oh my gosh, we were there on the day that they did the Electric Parade. I'm so excited. That's so great. Um, and then as an adult, realizing, oh, they do that every day. Oh
Every
no, no,
day.
no, they do it twice every day.
Oh.
What what happens if they don't do it? Like, why? Who makes them do it? What curse are they under that they must perform the
Exactly.
electric twice a day? I mean, it's the curse of capitalism, but
It is. It is. It is.
it's so fun because it is such this. It's such a powerful moment, and I remember it as a
Mhm.
kid. And I don't remember a whole lot of my experience that day, but I do remember everything closing down in the happiest place on earth, and everyone gets together to watch this dang parade. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah,
Yeah. I I've
carnivals are big.
I've never been to Disneyland, but I've been to the Disney World Parade, and I remember it was such an amazing thing to be on Main Street, and then just everyone gets out of the way and the parade starts, and it's just such a as a child, it's such a huge event, and you think
Yeah.
it's such a special thing, and the poor actors are like, all right, well, we're doing it again, right?
We go. Here we go. Like at Disneyland, you do the parade once down to the front, and then you put everything in hiding, and then later on you bring everything out at the front, and you do the other way, so you
Oh,
can get
really?
back to the garages at the end of the night.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's pretty incredible. The curse of the electric parade. Oh my gosh! You start figuring it out, and as you figure it out, the what is it? The actors themselves, the big, huge animatronic Mickey Mouse, whatever it is, they're trying to stop you from solving the curse. Like, don't ask
Right?
questions.
Oh. Oh,
And you're
man.
just, I'm trying to save you.
Oh, man. So, I'm thinking about other aspects of festivals and fairs we should get into before we get into, like, so there's two more aspects that I kind of want to talk about
Oh, sure.
is special goods and foods, and then kind of like dive into like special like games and
Yep.
events that players can take part in. We've kind of hit on one of them, but let's talk about food a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Food is a big reason for festivals, and for me, like, my memories of Renaissance fairs will always be around huge turkey legs that are way too
Huge
big for
turkey
my head,
legs.
right? You go to there and you get that, and then you get the ice cold pickle out of the bucket from the person who's wandering around yelling ice cold pickles, right? So
I'll believe you.
yeah, for me, those are the two things that I remember at Renaissance
Uh,
fairs or medieval fairs. In at pirate festivals, it's like, all right, well, where are we going to get our grog? Where are we going to get our other weird things? I even mentioned it when we were talking about Day of the Dead. Is those sugar skulls, right? That's
yeah.
something very specific to that festival. So thinking about cool foods and interesting trinkets and stuff that the players can get. Um,
Right.
when I was researching this, I saw one good post was that you're able at this one fair that someone wrote, you're able to buy a wand of soft fruit. And so what you do is you cast the wand, and it's like throwing a tomato.
Oh,
So
I see.
so you could throw like tomatoes and other soft fruits at performers, and then there's a chance
Right.
that it'll malfunction and a tomato will hit you instead or something. But you
Right.
can come up with interesting items that are only really like, maybe there is use outside of the festival, but it's specifically for that festival. These trinket like magic items. Um,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things you can think about. Take your experiences at Disney World or Mardi Gras or Carnival or any of these festivals is like, think about some of the things that you would buy there. You'd buy like glow sticks. Well, that's super easy with magic, right? You could get these
Mhm.
cheap lights that glow in multiple colors all night, and it's just, you can use magic to kind of enhance it. Or the things that shoot confetti, right? And then you can add like special, almost wild magic to things to make it more
Yes.
exciting, right? Like every 1 in 10 times you shoot confetti out of your confetti cannon, your handheld confetti cannon, it shoots a firework into the air, right? So
Yeah.
then you have random fireworks that are popping up randomly throughout this festival because of all these people who have these things, and it just adds to the whole set dressing, as it were.
I love short-term magic effects like that. Things that
Mhm.
will last tonight, and that's it. The
Yeah.
the magic is let loose. The veil is lifted or whatever.
Hmm.
So you can have like, maybe you have a bunch of foods and you can try one of the specialties, but beware, they're gonna have some effects, and if you eat too many, you're gonna get horribly sick. But
Hmm.
if I eat this one, like I grow to large size for the next 5 hours or something.
Yeah.
Nothing huge, but something that is helpful. Or I just get little things that change me for this festival. And you look around and you see everybody else is doing the same thing, and you see a
Hmm.
few kids who are sick 'cause they tried to eat 3 of them at once, and now they're like tall, but also and
Yeah.
uh, they would be really fun to do things like that. And I think that could be a fun way to kind of give unique foods a spin. So, you know, we're talking about Rime of the Frost Maiden with the
Hmm.
knucklehead trout.
Yeah.
Big deal. There's rules for fishing these trout, whatever else. Are they good? I don't know. Is there a competition for cooking them? Do we eat them? Does anything happen? Um,
And one of the fun things about that is I don't think they are good. I don't remember this, but I don't think they are good. I think they are like catfish,
uh,
where they can be made good, but even if but I think it's even, in my head, it's even better if they're not good and there is a, knucklehead trout cooking competition, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you have to somehow try to make the best dish you can with this awful, bottom feeding fish.
Oh my gosh. What a good adventure. Got to go find the right spices, the right side dish, go out in the world.
Right? Oh, wait, no, we already did that adventure.
Uh, but yeah, I love the idea of food because it is such an easy way to give a signature moment to an event, and
Hmm.
really kind of describe what a location is about. If you have a place and it's surrounded by fields and there's a forest over there, I don't know. Is there an orchard part of that? Are they well known for their fruits? Is it about the plains and they have
Yeah.
tons and tons of grains? Do they have amazing breads? Like,
Yeah.
it's an interesting way to separate different cities and make them feel a little bit more distinct.
Yeah, and on top of that, I love the like little trinket ideas too. Like,
Oh,
they don't all have to be magic, but but there's a certain amount of going in and into these festivals, and in real life, when you go to these festivals, you see people with these things. There's things like, like pinwheels or balloons, or like glow sticks, or like the glowing glasses or
yeah.
necklaces, or or even people are wearing like costumes or funny hats that they bought. Or if you go to a beer fest, like we went to a beer fest in Canada, and everyone was wearing necklaces of pretzels. And,
Pretzels, yeah.
and so that's your food and your trinket, right? It's like, well, why are people wearing these necklaces of pretzels? Well, it's because we're drinking a bunch of beer. Well, okay,
Right.
then, maybe that's part of it. Is maybe there's a big
Right.
brewers festival, and then, you need something kind of salty and, absorb it to absorb some of that booze. So what kind of food offerings would you have? Are you selling like pumpernickel bread, or are you selling like pretzels on a stick? I mean,
Yep.
things like that.
And there's also, I mean, there's so much preparation. I know for a lot of those, the people make those necklaces themselves and bring
Hmm.
them in, right? You can't
Yeah.
just buy them there. And
No.
then you're like, wait a second, how did they get that? I want that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. How do I find that here?
Mhm.
This could be a lot of, giving those notes, right? If I was in that event as a character and I saw that, I'd be like, where I want that. And that could suddenly be a lead to all sorts of stories. The
Mhm.
shady merchant in the back who is selling those, but
Right.
there's not as many pretzels as you want, and a few of them are pretty old and stale or totally cursed and poisoned. Who knows? Scooby Doo now? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? And then the other fun thing to talk about, of course, in these games are ways for your your characters, your PCs to interact. So
Yes.
that's when we start looking at things like games. We start looking at things like competitions, rides. I think rides is going to be important, especially looking at your background, right? Is
Yeah.
there a Ferris wheel, right? What does the Ferris wheel do? Like, what's the Ferris wheel equivalent? um, what makes it attractive for your players to ride it, and what do they see when they're up top, right? It doesn't
Right.
necessarily need to be something horrid, but but it gives them a good view of what's going on, and you could talk about the relaxing, like you can hear the low level noise of the crowds as you're above it looking down, and you
Mhm.
see the sun setting, and so rides can be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But really, what we're looking at is like competitions, like those
Right.
that's what your competitions in games. Those are the things your players are going to be looking at doing. Simple
Right.
ones. Yeah,
We want the die rolls, and yeah, it's hard to
yeah,
do that on a ride.
yeah. Exactly.
uh,
Yeah,
Even though that I might prefer them, but yeah, we want the midway. We want all the games.
yeah,
Um, I was taking a look for this at a little adventure called We Before Goblins, which is part of the We Be Goblins series, the fourth
yeah.
one.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, the goblins, like, as in each of these, they go on these different adventures. You play these goblin NPCs way back in Pathfinder 1. But in this one, you play the younger versions, and the first thing that you do is go through a festival where you show that you are good enough to become a full member of the goblin tribe. And so you have things to do, like you have to prove your mastery over dangerous creatures by tying a leash to a large spider and then trying not to get bit, like trying to do
Mm-hmm.
some dexterity checks to dodge, trying to do some animal handling checks to like calm it down, things like that. Similarly, like digging worms out of the mud without using their hands or feet. They're just like chomping down in the mud with their mouths and trying to find worms and not swallow them, things like that. There's just all sorts of weird things in here, and they're cool because we're all doing them.
Yeah.
There's a benefit for succeeding, but they're not major benefits. So if I lose, it's fine. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to re-roll one saving throw today. But or what else do we get? This one with the animal fiendship, following a successful attack roll against a creature of the animal type, the user of this badge increases their damage by a d6 points. Like little small benefits that they get
Mm-hmm.
for succeeding at these tasks. Maybe not like huge magical items, because it's a big thing.
Right.
Uh, but very small niche benefits that are going to come up later in the story is really, really fun for a mini game atmosphere.
Yeah, this is a good time to kind of think ahead too, because you could think about some of these competitions and benefits and the prizes, and give them like a subtle use or a subtle benefit that will maybe come up a lot later, right? Like I keep coming back to the caber toss. It's such an interesting thing watching those people try to lug that huge log. So
Yeah.
what if the reward for that was like a bracelet or an amulet that gave you an extra d6 of damage when you were attacking a wooden object, right?
Right.
I mean, that's not huge, right? It's not gonna break the bank. It seems appropriate. Like it seems like a kind of option you might get for winning that, right? If you're gonna get a
Yeah.
magic item. Meanwhile, that the party is going to go up against a strange wooden golem down the road, and this is just
Right.
going to give them an advantage on that, right? Maybe it's not this level, maybe it's 3 levels in advance, maybe
Right.
but it's you have placed that weird item that isn't necessarily always useful, but it's going to be useful once every so often. So when that player who won the caber toss sees the wooden golem come crashing down on the party, and
That's good.
everyone's weapons are having issues breaking through, it's like, oh, I got the perfect thing for this. And
Right.
it
Right.
just, yeah.
I love those things because then as the DM as well that like I can add those things. I can make them a little bit stronger because I
Mm-hmm.
know I set up this competition that someone succeeded on and they have a benefit that will overcome this challenge. Which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was just thinking about these goblins who won an award for chewing through the dirt to find these worms. They can't use their hands and feet. Maybe later on they find themselves like walking through caves where they are restrained, like
Yeah.
they get wrapped up and grappled, but because they've been able to use their chompers to solve problems, they've got a bonus of some kind
Hmm.
to get out of that and save everyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Remember
there's
that
just
time you won that competition? Well, you have advantage on this now because of
right.
that.
It's Chekhov's worm chomper. No, I don't know. But all of these events can be that. Like
Yeah.
it's really fun, I think, to build games, just to build games. That's fine. Like do an archery contest. You've got like a golden apple at the end for winning. That's cool. But maybe these boons are something that they're going to call back to these games and be like, oh, I remember we trained in that. Gosh
Yeah.
darn it.
Right.
Um, and that works really well for like the haunted festival, the thing
Hmm.
where you are celebrating a specific thing, memorializing that. If I do need to know, like, okay, so gosh, this big figure who was huge in this battle always did the same power move, and so I need to remember, like, okay, parry up and then like
Hmm.
riposte and then boom and then attack. And then that event happens. Well, there we go. That is actually the key to go back to Disneyland. The kids Jedi training. it's a it's the best event. Just go watch it because it's fun. All these kids sign up to learn how to fight like a Jedi, and they get these. Do they get lightsabers? They must. But they're all taught to do this one specific move.
Uh-huh.
And then as they get out on the stage and all their parents are cheering and they practice the moves and stuff like that, oh no, like smoke starts pouring out of the ground and this spaceship rises and walking out of it is Darth Vader or Phasma or Kylo Ren, one of the three. Um, and then, oh no, all the kids have to fight them off. And how do they fight them off? Doing the move that they learned. And immediately they're able to defeat them and everyone goes, yay. And then they walk off and they do it again. But that moment is very cool for kind of everybody because you learned how to solve the problem that would eventually come up. And so I think,
Yeah.
what you're talking about is doing that, which is very cool.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing to think about too. Is some of these games in some of these things they do maybe have a history behind them, like ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies. Is talking about the Black Plague or Black Death or whatever. Maybe it's something similar where there's this monster and the kids all learn how to fight it, right?
Mhm.
And they think it's just fables or folklore, but it's this monster, and there's a certain thing that this monster does every time, and then you learn the defense, and then you learn like its soft spot, right? So when this monster actually attacks or you run into it, you're like, wait a second, I know how to take care of this problem.
And you're like, perfect. You gain advantage on this hit, and
Yeah,
and right.
exactly, right.
I think that's a lot of fun because, yeah, like you said at the start, these festivals don't happen for no reason, right? I
Mhm.
think it's rare for someone to be like, let's just have a festival, let's just do it.
Yeah.
They're all tied to these holidays, they're all tied to specific events, and they're what give them meaning and the reason people
Hmm.
go to them. So those are
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, and it's kind of interesting to think about what other festivals this town has and how it's different too. Like if you really want to get into it, like if this is a reoccurring village or reoccurring town, because think about your own city and how many different kind of festivals you have and you interact with, and and not necessarily just holidays, but the way you celebrate those holidays.
Right.
Yeah, here in Portland, we have the Blues Fest. I mean, that's is a festival, right? It happens, 4th of July weekend on the waterfront. Then you have the Portland Brewery Fest, right? Because everyone loves
Huh?
beer, right? And then you have you're thinking about all these festivals, and sure, now we kind of monetize them and they've become these capitalistic monoliths that move into your town,
Yeah.
which I mean could be a thing too in your D&D adventure, right? Maybe there is this traveling monolith of a carnival that moves around, and the traveling carnival has something to go around with it, and it's always an event
Right.
when it shows up. But maybe because of the way it works, there's something nefarious that you get to dig into about it.
Right. I keep thinking about whenever Cirque du Soleil shows up in your
Hmm.
town and they just set up this structure. You
Hmm.
can't see it there. What's going
Right.
on in there? I don't know. I gotta wait
Yeah.
for it to come out on TV. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, circuses, right? That's something that's a traveling celebration, a traveling event. You can definitely pull some of those more into this. But I think unless your adventure is specifically around that type of thing, I still love the idea of us like celebrating something. So I love harvest festivals. I love the idea of harvest festivals. I think they're a solid route to go if you're just introducing this town for one mission.
Yeah,
Um,
it
spring
makes perfect
festivals are
sense.
great, right? Something that has to do with something in the region that changes. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, small towns focus on harvest festivals for sure.
Hmm.
Major ones maybe not so much because your people are not generally farm workers.
Hmm.
So having the harvest complete might not be as big of a thing, but the New Year's festival, I'm always a
Hmm.
fan of that. Some way to signify the end of winter or when things starts coming back to the sun. Those are always fun. Midsummer, beyond being a great word.
Hmm.
um, Longest day of the year. That's a big deal, right? A lot
Yeah.
of cultures focus on astrological events. So you've got your equinoxes, you've got your solstices. Those are just things people are going to know and mark. And if they're not filling their houses with clocks and calendars, those are the easiest like timed events to really bring into your campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and now that we're kind of talking about, I think that's kind of a good place to start, right? So let's take a step back and look at this as from a world building perspective. If you're building a world and you're building a town or a city or a metropolis or a village, the first place to kind of look at some of these cultural things is the calendar and the way the stars and the sun and the moon interact with that calendar. So we'll just say we're using our normal 12-month calendar. Forgotten Realms has each calendar has 3 weeks of 10 days,
Right.
and whatever. But you can look at there. You can figure out where the middle of the calendar is. You can divide the calendar in fours, so then you have four spaces for these various festivals to kind of represent the changing the seasons. So you have your
Yeah.
spring festival, your fall festival, your summer equinox festival, and your winter equinox festival. Um, so there, right? You already have four festivals, and then
Right.
and then you think about the region and what kind of issues. Maybe there's the Great Slaying of the Dragon Festival. There used to be a tyrannical dragon who lived in the mountains above, and it used to attack your village. But some adventurers came to town and ended up slaying it on the fourth full moon of the year. So now every fourth full moon of the year, they celebrate uh, Slayer's Day. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, you could do cool things like that, and that helps you kind of expand the history and the depth and breadth of just the knowledge you'll have and be able to share with your players about this place that the game
Right.
is taking place.
And I always expect like this is what I would want out of a game where you stay local. You've
Hmm.
got some towns around, you've helped save them, but you're not running off to Waterdeep to see bigger problems, right? You're kind of around here. And so you have an adventure to go on, and now you have a time limit because you know that the city has its midsummer festival, and you like kind of want to go to that. So
Hmm.
can we wrap up this troll thing pretty fast and get back here? Suddenly I've got a timeline that I'm actually curious about. And these moments become things that my characters actually look forward to
Hmm.
and want to, think about the future. A lot of D&D is not really thinking about the future except in terms of the villains that got away and what I'm going to do next level. But if you can find ways for the world to introduce future events, festivals are such a good way to do that.
Hmm.
Then your characters get more invested in, I think, the world around them. That's very, very good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, in this discussion, I didn't expect us to kind of get this deep into it, but it feels like there is a lot of cool world building you can do with just
Yeah.
looking at the way festivals interact with these villages and the way the people interact with these festivals. Um, yeah, no, it's really making me think about this, right? Too, because primarily do urban campaigns like that. Those tend to be my favorite, where we're in a big city and we just kind of stick to it. So I'm thinking about Waterdeep and how many different festivals and different reasons to celebrate that city has, and the various ways that they could potentially go and celebrate those things. Yeah,
Right.
this is it's
There's a
it's this is really cool thoughts.
Well, if you're interested, the DMs Guild has the book for you. And anyone who's excited about festivals, feasts, and fairs, that's the name of this book. It is a platinum seller by the incredible Ashley May, and
Mm,
it's got tons of more games and activities that you could slot into the festivals you're looking for.
yeah.
Some mundane and magical items, some stuff on fortune telling in there as well.
Oh yeah.
Some sample holidays if you're interested. A lot of books have sample holidays, good to look at. And also 2 new player backgrounds, the Carney and the Mummer.
Interesting.
You
Interesting.
want to dig into a festival lifestyle. That's a
Yeah.
pretty cool book.
My dad was a carny.
Yeah.
For a little while. Yeah.
Wow.
He operated
Uh,
the I think it was the goldfishes where
oh, okay.
you take the ping pong ball, you try to toss it in there.
Oh, I gotcha.
I think he operated the goldfishes for a little while. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, you could think about those stupid games like shooting fish in a barrel, right? You could
Mhm.
totally bring that into your fair, and you could totally drive your archer nuts because they won't be able to hit anything, right? And remember,
Right.
like a lot of these games are rigged, you
They
know,
are.
and that's part of it too. Is you're gonna go, your characters are gonna buy these tickets for these games. These games are gonna be rigged. They're gonna lose, and you just have to instill that feeling of fun to make sure that although they are losing, that this is all part of the festival fair carnival experience.
Right.
So
Oh, that's so good. I'm thinking about now like the lower ticket magic item, or, not magic items, trinkets that you could give
yeah,
out that are just a little underwhelming.
right. Like
That could be fun. And they're like, I want to trade up.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you got 5 points. Here you go. You can take anything out of this bucket. Oh, here's a
Yeah.
ring that magically blinks. Just blinks colors. That's all it
Yeah.
does.
And you put it on, it turns blue. The end.
The end. It's a magic ring that reflects your mood.
Uh,
Are you angry? Well, it turns red. Are you sad?
yeah.
Oh, it's blue. Are
Right.
you-
Now everybody's got insight checks against you. Your advantage on
oh,
them.
yeah. Are you wearing your fancy ring? Wow, now people can totally read what's going on with you. Oh man, I love it. Now
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be thinking about like chintzy prizes.
I know. Well, that's good because we've got some festival building to do in the coming weeks. That's very exciting.
Yeah, so a quick breakdown of let's talk about our next show is going to be on the 15th. Well, the next show in this series is going to be on the 15th. That's going to be building an adventure, dealing with fairs, festivals, and carnivals. Then on the 22nd, we could take a break from the adventure writing, and we're going to dig into Tasha's Cauldron. And then
Yes.
finally, on the 29th, we are going to go ahead and build an encounter that we, highlighted in our adventure for, for festivals, fairs, and carnivals. In addition, starting tomorrow at 7 p.m., which is Monday night, the 9th, we are going to be digging back into our Deep Delve series, and we're going to be focusing on doing a comprehensive dig into the various feats that are available in official sources for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And that should be a ton of fun if you really want to, get elbow deep into mechanics with us.
Right.
Instead
You know,
of,
you
yeah.
you get to 4th level, you got to pick a feat. You should check in with us first.
For those of us hanging out with us in Twitch and chat, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. Make sure to visit our YouTube and subscribe over there. Those of you who are watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and check us out on Twitch every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/Owlbear Soup. Is there anything you want to shout out for people to look forward to this week?
Oh gosh, I'm just excited to talk more about festivals next week, and feats tomorrow night. That's going to be great. Yeah, just come check us out. Just watch it all.
Watch it all. Yeah.
All
And feel free to join our Discord to keep on top of when we're doing all our fun things. Speaking of fun things, this Thursday for sure, I'm going to be back behind a DJ decks doing some house music and classic flicks. I may pop on throughout this week randomly. I have a couple weeks off of work. Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us, and see you all next time.
Bye.